So, I finally got Elden Ring on PC, and it is great. Mind you, I've played through the game twice on my Xbox, so I am quite the pro at the game already.
You need to stop.
What's wrong with you, bro? What the heck? You tripping, bro? You tripping!
God damn it! God fucking damn it!
Jokes aside, Elden Ring is a game that intrigued me for quite some time after it came out. I was never a Dark Souls fan, but I had heard so many good things about the game, and after a seemingly endless storm of dogshit games that were overhyped and, well, undercooked is the understatement of the year, Cyberpunk 2077, Battlefield 2042, Call of Duty Vanguard, Halo Infinite, I was just done. I was done being excited about new games, especially after waiting 6 years for Halo Infinite to come out, just to be a glorified shopping sim that looked like this when you weren't seething at the paywalling of customization options that have been in the game since... Actually, when did Halo 2 come out? 2004! Halo 2 is almost old enough to grab a six-pack from the local 24/7 and still has more content than fucking Halo Infinite. But I needed a breath of fresh air. I needed something new. Something that didn't present me with a store upon opening the game. A game without bullshit premium currencies. So, when I bought the game for a buddy as a birthday present, I decided, fuck it, why not? If I don't like it, I can just refund it. And within the first 6 hours of playing the game, I was in. The game very quickly shoved itself into my top 3 favorite games, and it has stayed there ever since. The game, of course, isn't without its flaws, no game is, but I can very safely call this game a masterpiece alongside Halo 3 and Red Dead Redemption, which are 2 games that I personally grew up with. I've just recently beaten the game for the 3rd time, that playthrough, and now my 4th playthrough being on PC, and let me tell you, my Xbox One does not do this game justice. Seeing the archery for the first time made me shed a tear. Seeing it for the first time on unrestricted graphics made me fucking weep. Elden Ring is easily one of the prettiest games I have ever laid my eyes and ears on. The soundtrack for this game is simply hypnotic. Pairing that with the absolutely inconceivable beauty of this game makes it a 10 out of 10 right off the bat. So, I suppose we should talk about the soundtrack and atmosphere first, as those are always some of my favorite parts of the dissect. FromSoft is no stranger whatsoever when it comes to amazing boss tracks and area background music. And while I do feel that some of the boss tracks were somewhat weaker than, say, Dark Souls 3, it's a little hard to compare Fort of the Boreal Valley or Great Grey Wolf Sif. Though I gotta be honest with you, putting one of those above Godrick's or Godfrey's theme is pretty fucking hard. However, I do feel that the area tracks were definitely stronger here in Elden Ring, with Caelid's backtrack sounding like a corpse eating away at the Scarlet Rot while flies are swarming around it. Something feels wrong the moment you enter Caelid, which for most people is on accident. There's a chest in the dragon-burnt ruins of Aegea Lake in Limgrave, but while it seems like any other, suddenly smoke begins spilling out of it, and your screen goes black. When you come to, you're in the Celia Crystal Tunnel, surrounded by stone enemies you are not yet equipped to fight, and rot kindred who melt you the second they look at you. My first time in Caelid was absolutely hellish. You can't fast travel away after you're ensnared in a trap chest until after you've rested at a site of grace. I booked it out of the tunnel after realizing I couldn't even kill the miners, and found myself in Celia, unable to dodge the endless barrage of glintstone sorceries. Then I was shot at by a troll on top of a cliff face, chased by a fucking dragon, until I was finally able to find a site of grace up the road, with a merchant not far behind. Man, this place looks a lot like Dathomir. Don't worry though, I conquered my fear of dragons. I tell you this story though so you can understand the reputation of chaos and fear that this area of the map has, which is multiplied tenfold by its atmosphere and music. I could easily clear any of the enemies in Caelid now, but I still shit my pants every time I see one of those goddamn dog T-Rexes. I also say all of this, however, to show you how memorable this game truly is. Granted, I have played through the entire game 3 times once again, but I guarantee you there won't be a name you don't remember. Hugh, the blacksmith of the Round Table Hold. Who are you? Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing and occasional redditor.
Did you stick her in a jar, did you? Fill that jar with your tarnished seed.
Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. Godric the Grafted. Let me solo... Wait, This game has such a good way of building areas that make sense, stay in your mind, and tell a story. Want to know where the Sword of Night and Flame is? Easy, I can take you right to it. Carrion Manor. Crystal Sword? Easy, Village of the Alpenarchs. Knight's Cavalry Armor? It's in a chest in a wagon hauled by 2 trolls and guarded by 2 Knights Cavalrymen. Notice I didn't say easy for that one, that fight was not fun. But before I get too off topic, I mentioned story, and in no other game have I encountered environmental storytelling better than in this fucking game. There is not one piece of the game that isn't meticulously placed to give even a small bit of story, minus the fight between the Misbegotten Warrior and the Crucible asshole. I really don't understand why this fight is here, it makes no fucking sense. But anyway, the weird arched ruins scattered across Limgrave and Liurnia, those are pieces of Farum Azula. Just a little quick tidbit. You can actually get to Farum Azula early in the game by going to the 4 Belfries in Liurnia and using the Stone Sword Imbued key here to get to this little offshoot area of Farum Azula, meant to just show you that, hey, this area exists. And then all you do is fast travel back to the Round Table Hold, but Alt F4 right as it's about to finish loading when it does that big jump. And then when you reopen your game, you should spawn right where you do the first time you enter Farum Azula after you kill the fire giant. A massive place that floats in the sky and once hovered above Limgrave but was struck by an asteroid. This can be inferred just by reading the description of one of the ruin fragments you find all over these arches. Ever wonder why you fight Margit out front Stormvale? Or better yet, why he's a harder fight than Godric, who comes right after? Well, Margit is sort of a projection of Morgott, and Morgott projects Margit here so that he can ward off any tarnish seeking the Elden Ring, since he knows Godric won't be able to stop them himself. Why a projection? Why doesn't Morgott just come and fight you for real? Because Margit is the Veiled King of Leyndell, keeping the entrance of the Erd Tree safe, which is why he defends 2 places at once. 3 places if you meet him outside Leyndell. It's the same reason the Knights Cavalry, whose job it is to hunt and kill great champions, are found roaming around at night looking for you. They answer directly to Morgott. Even specific, individual NPCs have lore. Cleanrot Knight Finley is a spirit ash you can find within the Halig tree, and you might wonder why she seems to have a small shrine dedicated to her. Well, this is because she single-handedly saved Malenia's life. During the fight between Radahn and Malenia in what is now the Swamp of Aeonia, Malenia used her Aeonian Bloom attack against Radahn, which scattered rot across Caelid and permanently made Radahn a mindless husk of himself. But doing this made her further succumb to her Scarlet Rot and put her in a coma. Cleanrot Knight Finley carried her all the way through Limgrave, through Stormvale Castle, through the swamps of Liurnia, through the Altus Plateau, through the consecrated snowfields, all the way back to the foot of the Halig tree, which is where you find her in the game. Cleanrot Knights are a heroic tale by themselves, gladly fighting alongside Malenia and never wavering, despite knowing that fighting by her side means their inescapable, slow, and painful demise at the hand of the Scarlet Rot. But Cleanrot Knight Finley is the unsung hero among them. The story in this game goes so unbelievably deep that it is genuinely impossible for me to comprehend how anyone was able to write this without the power of 1,000 minds. Now, I'd like to talk about boss design. Well, I could go on about how unfair the infamous Godskin duo fight might be, and how it's not even actually a duo for hours. I'd like to spend the remaining portion of this video singing my praises to the game, though I know I've already kissed this game's ass enough. The very first boss you encounter after the tutorial area is directly in view the moment you open the door and leave said tutorial area, the Tree Sentinel. Trying to beat him on your first time playing the game is awful. It will take you hours and 1,000 tries, and while it is absolutely possible, it's also completely avoidable. In previous Souls games, From Software would have you fight a difficult boss right after you beat some of the beginner enemies, just to immediately shut down your thought that, oh, this game isn't so bad. But this one serves an entirely different purpose. Elden Ring is the first open world game in the Souls series, and so you have the ability to leave bosses alone and come back when you're stronger. The Tree Sentinel in Limgrave is there to express that very idea. That it's okay to step back and come back when you're more well equipped to deal with a boss you might be stuck on. The bosses themselves are very well designed as well. Their movesets are designed in such a way that each hit you take teaches you a lesson. Keep getting hit by Margit's delayed attacks? Stop panic rolling. Can't seem to get a single hit on Godfrey? Jump instead of rolling when you see his stomp attacks. Can't seem to get a hit on the bestial enemies? Stop rolling away from attacks and roll directly into the attacker so you don't waste time closing the distance when you could be capitalizing on downtime and long attack chains. Actually, that last one kind of just applies to every enemy in the game besides Rykard and the Land Octopi. But it's not just boss enemies that teach you these lessons. Lesser sorcerers that only shoot one glintstone at a time teach you to be able to dodge the more bullet hell pieces of the game, like the fight with Renala or the Elden Beast. You get the idea. Finally, why don't we end off the video with a talk about the progression of the game. I could not adore it more. The first time, and maybe the second or third time you play this game, you might get your ass handed to you on a silver platter by the vast majority of the enemies in the game. But as you get better, you notice that enemies that used to feel like mini-bosses now just go down in one fell swoop. I used to avoid fighting the Black Flame monks in the Divine Tower of Caelid altogether. They used to kick my ass every time, and even killing them left me with very little flasks or supplies to deal with the next enemy. Now I just dodge out of their attacks and annihilate them. The other piece of this progression is the progression of your character. The way you level up is by collecting runes, and instead of having a skill tree, you level each attribute one at a time, usually only able to put one or a few points in at any given time. You may think, oh, I want to spread my points out and be a jack of all trades, diversify my attributes. But this is the equivalent of shooting yourself in the foot. Your attributes also contribute to your health, your magic points, and your stamina, as well as the damage you do with certain weapons. Intelligence scales with sorcery weapons. So while you may have a fully leveled glintstone staff, it still won't reach its full potential damage output if you don't put points into intelligence. Same goes for faith and incantation seals, strength, and colossal or strike weapons. Arcane and dexterity are more like miscellaneous stats that are needed for certain types of weapons and magics. Each attribute is extremely important, and while having a strength and faith build is awesome, trying to branch out into all categories puts too few points into more important stats. You might quickly come to realize that the armor you just picked up puts you into the heavy equip load, making your rolls and dodges much less reliable. Or that your health is too low and you are quickly dying to enemies. Which brings me to a massive point that is not expressed often enough. Focus primarily on leveling your vigor in the beginning. if you have a little amount of health going into your first few playthroughs, you're not going to be so good at dodging, and a shield won't save you forever. The game does not at all force you to pick though. You can go down any possible path you want, and each one will eventually lead to the perfect build, no matter what you choose. For my closing remarks, I'd like to say thank you to FromSoft for making such an amazing game. Were it not for Elden Ring, I would never have found my new favorite genre of games. And I'd like to thank you, dear viewer, for watching my video all the way through. That's all for this one.